Starting your own practice is hard for many chiropractors. It's riddled with both struggles and successes. But here at the Chiropractic Philanthropist, we make it easy by having chiropreneurs and entrepreneurs share their struggles and lessons learned in life and business so that you don't have to make the same mistakes. And now here's your host, Dr. Ed Osborne.
What is it that trips up your office? Finding new patients, retention, teaching about holistic wellness, or is it patients who can't seem to kick poor health practices? As a business owner, a wellness practitioner, a teacher, a mentor, often an emotional support, as chiropractors, we have a lot to carry. Let Mahalo Wellness carry some of the burden. Mahalo Wellness CBD oil products are the one small change that can change both your clinic revenue and jumpstart your patients' crave to begin healthier living. Try all Mahalo has to offer to determine what is receptive in your clinic. Special pricing on 10 bottle and 20 bottle bundles. Head to mahalowellness.com/collections/TCP-podcast today. All right, Laptop Lifestyle listeners, I have an incredible guest today, and that is actually Mary Kathryn Johnson. MK, how you doing today?
I am fan-sticking-tastic, Ed. How you doing?
I'm awesome. I love where I get to have these conversations with actually people that we have these conversations on Zoom outside of interviews. And it's a little bit different when we do these podcasts.
It totally is, isn't it? I mean, I feel like I know you so well, and now we're talking about a subject we haven't really talked about yet, right?
Exactly. And here's the thing is too, it's going to be an incredibly valuable topic for everyone who is the aspiring online entrepreneur. And you know what? I got to be honest with you. I don't fully understand this conversation. So it'll be really interesting for me too. So Mary, why don't you start though by telling us a little bit more about, first of all, who you are, tell us about you, and then tell us a little bit about like your why. Like, why are you getting into, I'll say it like bots? Why, what is the purpose? Why?
All right. So I have to say something. This just hit me right before we started to chat today, Ed, because today is a very important anniversary. And this anniversary, the day we're recording this anniversary was basically my fall into entrepreneurship. And it was literally a tumble, a fall. So it's really kind of, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty magical that I'm having this conversation with you today of all days, and it's leading me to tell you why I've ended up where I am. So let me tell you really quickly what anniversary this is. On this day in 2001, I was 8 months pregnant, and I was visiting my neighbor, and I was walking out her front door, and I fell. I just series of events. Fell down out of her front door, down her couple of steps of her front porch, and I landed with 2 broken legs at 8 months pregnant. I had a cast up to the knee on both legs, and one was pink and the other was blue because we didn't know what we were having. And I got to go through the last month of pregnancy basically not being able to do anything for myself and go through labor, delivery, caring for my newborn and my toddler, who was 3 at the time, someone you know, who is now 20. But, I had to try and do all of that and hobble through with the help of a walker, like those walkers little old ladies take out on the town. Yeah. That's all I could do. I had an office chair that had wheels. I would wheel myself around the house. I couldn't stand very long. I couldn't take a shower, couldn't take a bath. I had very long hair, couldn't wash my hair. It was the biggest wake-up call of how I thought my life, I thought I was so independent and so in charge and so type A. And then boom, I'm not. And I have to rely on everybody else. I can't do anything for myself. So that basically led to, I was depressed. I'd never been depressed before. I mean, it was just this series of events that finally, when I got to the other side of it, and I could walk out of the hospital after I'd gotten my last cast off and I had a walking boot, I could walk out holding my then almost 3-month-old in my arms because I couldn't even carry him anywhere. That was like, if I can do this with my sense of humor intact, I can do anything. And about 18 months later, I started my first business, and I was just totally consumed with this idea, and I just ran with it and kept telling myself, you delivered a baby with casts on your legs. You've tried to figure out how to navigate life with absolutely no independence. You got this. Don't worry about it. You can do it. And that was totally naive, but I did it anyway.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads to, a bunch of messy middle stuff, right? That was 2003. So we're talking 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And there was a bunch of messy middle stuff and a bunch of stuff in 2008 with the recession and all that stuff just hit. And then we come out to the other side of that with a podcast and coaching parents trying to build businesses and all those things. And I got that same consuming feeling when I was introduced to ChatBots. It was the exact consuming feeling like, oh my gosh, I have to do this. I cannot let this slip by. I cannot just watch this happen. I have to participate. It just made sense. And luckily I didn't have to break my legs to do it. So that was a really good thing. But that's the anniversary. Today is the day.
Wow.
4:00 this afternoon is when that happened and totally changed my entire life.
It's interesting too that, how like many people that I speak to, they have, that are really ultra successful or hyper successful. They have one of those moments where there's just this pure necessity that, it's like, and it's actually a necessity in survival. It's like, I got to figure my stuff out because I got like 2 broken legs, or I'm in the hospital, or I can't do this anymore. And then, boy, look and just watch you go. Like,
just watch out. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what that's about. Your story is very similar with your illness and things. And it just really was. It was this thing like, if I take this knowledge that I have about myself now and I don't act, that's one of the biggest regrets I know I will have at the end of my life, whenever that might be. And I just couldn't do it. I just could not sit and not jump when I was just possessed with this idea. So
I got to back up here because I don't know the whole story. So
yeah.
So you did coaching for a while, and then you also, you had a podcast. Now, what was the space? Like, what was the niche or the market there?
So the first business I had was called Mommy Loves, and it was actually an e-commerce business. And I created the website, and this was, again, 2003, long time ago, right? No Facebook, no Twitter, no social media. It was just Google AdWords. And I was luckily, before I got into that and decided to start my business, I was a technical recruiter. I was a technical headhunter. So I had a Rolodex of high-level CTOs, database engineers, software developers, all these people at my disposal that I had gotten jobs for and built relationships with. And I just tapped them and said, hey, how do I do this? I've got this idea. What do I do? And they told me what software to use. They told me how to do the shopping cart, and I did it all myself. So I did that. Then the recession hit. And of course, retail was just, my income, and it was crazy successful. And I was the first maternity store online ever.
Wow.
So it was just amazing. This was just doubling and tripling revenue every year. And then 2008 hits. And here's my first entrepreneurial lesson, which I failed, but learned amazing lessons from. I held on too tight. I just kept holding on and kept thinking, I'll just dump more money in. I'll just try a new design. I'll just try and figure out where my people are. And I would not give up and restructure or do anything like that. So I got like $40,000 in debt. And then finally, one day, probably 2011, I believe it was, my wonderful accountant comes to me and says, when doing the books, he says, why are you holding on to this dying business? And I just looked at him and said, I can't let it go. If it dies, if it's a failure, that means I'm a failure. And I actually said those words out loud, even though I had been thinking them for a long time. And he looked at me and said, I've got news for you. You are not your business. And I just started bawling, and I gave him a big sloppy wet kiss because he happens to also be my husband. And I said, okay, what are we going to do? Let's get out of this thing. And we restructured everything, outsourced everything, sold on my equipment, because I was in my sweatshop. I was making every shirt, printing every receipt, communicating with every customer. I was it. I was the solopreneur and proud of it. And no longer do I do that. So I had to switch it. And people kept coming to me saying, how did you do that while you're raising kids? So by this time now my kids are, like 8 and what was he, 7 and 11. And so they were asking me, how are you doing that? And so they asked me to coach them and consult with them and help them build a business as they were raising a family. And that's what I was doing, coaching and consulting. And that's where the podcast was born out of. And it's still going strong. You've been a guest. Karen's been a guest. So I keep doing that. I can't let that go because it still is why I started a business to begin with. Family, to be able to be home and raise my kids was really my number one goal.
I love this.
Yeah. So, and then after that, people started asking me, okay, instead of coaching me, you've helped me grow my business through coaching me. Now I need someone to help me actually do the marketing instead of coach me on how to do it. And they were smarter than I was at the time, right? They were going, I need to outsource this. And I said, okay. And I started a marketing agency. And that's a year after I started that, I was introduced to bots and my whole world changed.
And it's interesting too, because like in the world of marketing, there's some people who just do everything, but you found, like, we'll call it the bot talk today.
Yeah.
So you discovered bots and you were like, no, I'm going to go deep. Like, we're not going to go wide on this marketing thing. We're going to go deep on bots. And that's what we do. And that's our specialty. So let's assume that the listener is under a rock. They've never heard of a bot. So tell us a little bit about, like, what is a bot?
Okay, so first off, the bot is saying what is a bot is just like saying what is email marketing. Okay. It's not, I don't necessarily, and it's the word we always use to describe it, but the bot is the delivery method. That's it. The bot is just the communication delivery method for your prospects and customers. And it happens to be I happen to focus on Facebook Messenger as my bot platform. But you can also, and I'm learning more about and branching out into, Twitter has bot. LinkedIn has a bot. So it's really just the delivery method. And so if you think about email, about email marketing, right? Everyone, you really have to be under a rock if you don't know about email marketing. So if you look at that same concept and you think of how am I going to take my customers from, first off, they opt in for something that interests them that I have, and then I take them through a series of emails showing them the value of what I have, ending up, hopefully, that they purchase what I have for them. The chatbot and the bot is really just the same concept, but in a different delivery method, a different medium that is so much more powerful, so much more interactive and fun that it gets such higher results.
Yeah, I mean, it is, would you say, well, if I'm a Facebook like marketer, like if I'm someone who's on Facebook and that's where all of my prospects, my leads, everything like that I do, it comes from there. If I'm looking at doing running ads, or if I'm looking at doing like chatbot, like which I know what you're going to say, which is more effective? What should I do?
So actually of course I'm going to say bots because I love them and I do them all the time, but I'm going to stop there and say, I would not only pick one. Okay. If you're already doing ads, go for it. So I have a client who hired me after she had already reached $1 million in sales in 10 months through Facebook ads, right? Add to a landing page, registering for an evergreen webinar, they attend the webinar, and then they buy at the sales page, right? We all know that process. It's a pretty standard process for webinars. Now, the reason I'm going to say, if you don't jump into bots, I'm going to smack you, is because Facebook, you got to think about Facebook itself. Of course, it wants to make money and it wants you to advertise, right? That's how it stays in business. From day one, Facebook has done that, right? But their mission, what they also say in the background, kind of out the side of their mouth after they have collected your money, is they say, our mission is to connect people, to engage and connect people. That's their mission. So chatbots have the possibility of using Facebook's mission to our advantage. And what I mean by that is you don't just have an ad to cold traffic, warm traffic, whoever, have them land on a landing page and hope they take an action from it. Bots actually allow you to build a relationship, to get micro commitments all along the way before they even get to that landing page, so that they have opted in. They have taken the adventure. They've chosen to go along with you on this adventure. And when they get to that landing page, typically they are like, well, yeah, duh, of course. I've told you yes, 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 yes 10 times. So I get here and it's like, well, yeah, I'm used to saying yes. And I love what you're talking about. So yes. It really is that mission of connecting people that Facebook ads can't do. Facebook ads just throw money and at people out there. Hopefully they see what you have to say and then land on your page and take action.
Yeah.
It's totally different. So I would suggest you do both. If ads are working for you, go for it. But if you want to actually build relationships and don't just throw money at the wall hoping something sticks, then chatbots are the way to go.
Yeah, it was really interesting when I first did, my kind of like MiniChat, because let me ask this question first, and it's just probably a short answer. I mean, there's many different delivery systems, right?
Right.
MiniChat is just one of them. Is that the one you recommend?
Depends on what you're doing. So I use MiniChat for any of my standard like digital product type marketing. Right. Webinars, online courses, digital products. It's built for marketers. If I'm on an e-commerce, if I'm working for an e-commerce client that has a store on Shopify or BigCommerce or anything like that, I go to actually Chat Fuel.
Oh, okay.
And the reason is because that has a lot more flexibility on the back end, and we can build abandoned cart messages and abandoned cart recovery messages. We can tie in the whole tech. I'll be a geek here. We can tie in all the tech and make sure that we know if they land on one of the pages and they purchase something, then we can tell the bot that they purchased it, and then make them go through the next sequence of what the upsell might be, the downsell might be, remind them when they run out of whatever it is they just bought. All of that we can code into the bot. Yeah. We can't really do that yet with MiniChat. So those are the two that I use.
Cool. Very cool. Thank you for that. And so when I looked at MiniChat, and I don't know, I signed up for it. What is it? Maybe like a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe a year and a half ago when it came out, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I'm going to experiment with this thing. And we had some messages going out, and I remember like people were messaging back because they actually thought it was me.
Yep.
And at the time I thought, hey, this is really cool. But here's how crazy it's evolved in just the last year and a half is like people actually now know that it's not actually you. And you can actually you can give a personality to your bot, which, like for me, we had designed EdBot and you give them a name, you give them a personality, and it's actually really, I don't know. I found that was actually really fun. I thought that was a really cool thing. Is that something that you recommend that most people do, or what would you recommend?
Yeah, it's totally up to you, but definitely the one thing you don't want to do is make them think that it's you actually typing. Okay. Right. Because we don't want to fool people. We don't want to try and, fool them into thinking that you're the one sitting there typing every message, because you're not. Now, I do jump into my bot. I do give it a persona. I have my logo and I call him Meffy. I don't know why, but that name just hit me when I saw my logo. And I'm like, he's Meffy. He's beautiful. He's amazing. And he has these little 3 dots, and we do things that I just have an amazing animator for a son that's helped me animate things and make him totally have a personality. And I have a lot of clients who actually create separate images, separate actual images to represent their bot. So they give it a face, and it actually has its own face and personality. And it just gives it a lot more fun. And it also allows the user to feel anonymous. Right? They feel like they're talking to this artificial intelligence, this bot, and they can pretty much say a lot of stuff. And I have a lot of people who say very interesting things in my bot, and then all of a sudden I jump in and they start saying things like, no, I don't need this, bleep, or get away, or what are you messaging me for, or something like that. And I watch my messages, right? So I jump in and go, oh, I'm so sorry that we bothered you. If you want to unsubscribe, just type the word stop and we'll never send you a message again. And every time they backpedal like crazy, like, oh, you're kidding. You mean this is really you? You mean you actually, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. And they just go on, and they're just so embarrassed. I'm like, no big deal. It's totally cool. I just wanted to let you know. I don't want to piss you off here. Just do what you got to do. If my stuff isn't working, go somewhere else. I'm totally cool with that. So it's really funny. You're right. They realize now that it's a bot, and they sometimes have fun with it.
how complicated it is. So I'm going to tell a little story.
Yeah.
So I tried to, I'm like, hey, I got a webinar coming up. So I'm like, this chat thing it's not hard. I could do this. I watched a couple tutorials. So I'm like, okay, I loaded a message and I'm like, okay, I'm going to, send this thing out. I schedule it for the next day, and then it goes out, and then but only like the first part of the message. And then it goes out again, and then it goes out again. And I'm like going, how do I stop this? Oh no. And like, fortunately you were on this bot list. And you're like, I think you need some help, because I was also getting messages from people sending me messages saying, I think EdBot is malfunctioning. Yeah.
That's so fun.
It is, and it is fun. And we kind of made fun, like played with that as it was a malfunction, you had a glitch. But the reality of it is like, how difficult, or would you recommend like someone like expertly set this stuff up? Is that always the best way to go? I mean, because to me, it seemed like a heck of a learning curve.
Yeah, it's, if you've done your own email automation, okay, so you've gone into, I'm not going to do Confusionsoft, right, or any of those big guys, but if you've done ConvertKit or Drip or MailChimp, and you have tags, or you have a sequence of messages and you know how to schedule them and those kinds of things, the chatbot's really not that difficult. It has a few more pieces, moving parts to it. It has buttons instead of just putting in a link somewhere. You can collect all kinds of data, but you don't have to get that fancy yet. You can just start by communicating with your audience. So I would say it depends on your own level, you listening to my voice. If you have done that in email and you're comfortable with that automation idea, go for it. Go into MiniChat. They've got a free tutorial. I think it's like 10 hours of videos. You start from one and you kind of learn the basics of how this thing works. And those are just the moving parts. So the chatbot is really, again, just the delivery method, just like email is, or MailChimp, or any of those. So once you get that down and you have an idea and you just go, it's okay to make mistakes, because this is still the Wild West of Facebook. It absolutely still is. There are changes happening all the time. I have to tell people when things don't deliver or whatever on my bot, I have to say, oops, I guess Mephi was just sleeping on the job there. Sorry about that. Let's see if I can wake him up. I do that maybe once every 3 months. And so if you're one of those people who are really worried and have to have it perfect, don't do it. Because it's not going to be. If you're okay with the fact that this is all a test and it's a rocket ship and you want to jump on and ride this thing, then do it and just play with it. It's not, unless, the only thing I would say, you must follow Facebook's terms of service. Do not do this if you just think you're just going to start sending people messages and saying, hey, I've got a 25% off special, and you haven't talked to these people in a month. Don't do that. Facebook will not like you, and they will shut you down, and they will not ask any questions, and they will not even say a word. You just will be gone. So don't do that. Learn Facebook's terms of service. There are some very specific things that you have to do. And if you have any questions, I can definitely talk about that if you want. But in terms of the general, do it. And if you're not one of those people and you don't know automation, hire somebody. There's lots of them. I have lots of recommendations of people at all levels. So it's not that difficult.
And would, well, actually, let's actually do this. Like, if someone has some questions or they would like to connect with you, what's the best place that they can actually reach you?
Well, they can go to messengerfunnels.com. That's my website. And there are all kinds of places where they can opt into my bot. They can email us. We have a general email box that either myself or my team answers. And it's projects@messengerfunnels.com. So they can email that. Really, Twitter @messengerfunnel, Facebook @messengerfunnels, Instagram @messengerfunnels. That's it. That's where I am. So reach out in any way. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I mean, because the reality also is like, a lot of doctors, a lot of healthcare professionals follow me. Would you recommend, or would you say that this is something, you talk about the Wild West. I mean, is this something that's really the blue ocean where health professionals who are using social media right now should be?
Definitely. Especially it's the blue ocean where there are there might be some health professionals on there, but they're not really doing it well. So here's the deal. Remember, Facebook's mission, keep that in mind. We are not just selling things to people. That's not what this is about. This is about, okay, I'm going to tell you right now, I invite people to reject me. I invite it every day. I welcome it. I would rather have people in my world subscribing to my bot that are white hot for what I've got to say. And if they're not, go find someone else who's speaking your language better than I am. I'm totally cool with that because I want relationships. And if you look at it that way and you don't look at it just as a conversion, you will be already ahead of everybody else.
Yeah, it is about connection. It is about value, isn't it? I mean, that's what it's all about in terms of just delivering. It's just another way of delivering content and value to people. Right. Okay, so listeners, actually, you can head over to the laptoplifestylepodcast.com. We're going to have a webpage dedicated to our discussion with MK today. And we're going to have links to all of the resources that she's provided. I want to thank you so much. I mean, this has really kind of helped me, though, like even just get some clarification on the delivery system versus actually there is a purpose, behind the marketing and a heart behind the marketing and not just a bot. So
that's what people, you're so welcome. And thank you for letting me explain this because my mission, beyond Facebook's mission, my mission is to make sure this does not become like email, right? I don't want it to be scammy and spammy and all that kind of stuff. So I would rather talk about this and help educate people on really the purpose behind it. Rather than just say, hey, go build a bot. That's why I don't really talk about chatbots or the words a lot, even though I got to tell you, I've been nicknamed the chatbot mom. So I'll wear that with pride. But the chatbot, it kind of scares people. It makes them think about AI and artificial intelligence and all this kind of stuff. Get over that and just think about relationships and you're good. So thank you, Ed, for letting me talk about it. I could talk all day long, as you can tell.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you very much for being on the Laptop Lifestyle Podcast today. We appreciate you.
So you've heard the struggles, you've heard the successes, and this episode is done. But there's still so much more to come and so much more to learn. Head on over to the chiropracticphilanthropist.com and sign up for our newsletter where you'll receive free practice building tips and strategies, including how to market your practice with your very own podcast and so much more. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Chiropractic Philanthropist.